But you tell us, is there a possibility of Chernobyl-like event happening in India? Mhm.
Nuclear is related to bomb. Even people ask me today, like when I tell I'm doing nuclear engineering or I do nuclear studies, and they say, "Oh, bomb bana lo abhi, bomb banate ho kya aap?"
How the bombs have evolved over the years, nuclear bombs. Is India having sufficient nuclear capacity? Help us understand how is electricity generated using the nuclear science.
Plasma is very interesting state of matter because we don't think of plasma, but the universe is made of plasma. Universe is almost 99% plasma.
How interesting.
So the temperature is equal to the temperature of the sun in a fusion reactor.
Really?
Really.
How nuclear energy is being used in other applications. Namaste, everyone, and welcome to the Curious Podcast. Today's podcast is dedicated to nuclear science, and we have with us our special guest, Arnab Deka. So, Arnab is a nuclear, radiation, plasma, and chemical engineer. He has over 8+ years of experience in R&D across various sectors, and he's specializing in nuclear, radiation, plasma, energy. So, welcome to the show, Arnab. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Pooja. Thanks for inviting me to your very interesting podcast. I look forward to a very interesting talk about nuclear energy and several aspects of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I am really looking forward to it because even though I studied commerce when we were given an option to choose between different streams, but I was always inclined towards biology, science. It always interested me. So that's why I'm personally looking forward to this one. Right off the bat, I want to start with a very basic question so that we can set the basics right for our audience. Explain nuclear science to a 5-year-old.
So, okay, to explain to a 5-year-old, I would say it is a natural process in which certain particles of nature interacts and we get energy out of these particles. And so, if we say particle, to explain to a 5-year-old, let's say if we hit two balls and then the balls kind of go in different direction, and then obviously there is a release of energy there also, which we cannot visibly see. So
Yes.
if you step down and see it in a very atomic in an atomic scale, the same processes are happening in nuclear scale. So it's a kind of some physical process in which we get energy and some physical system being in action. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty simple. Just make it level 2 sort of difficult and explain it to an 11th or 12th standard student who understands what an atom is, the parts of
Mm-hmm.
neutrons and
Mm-hmm.
electrons. So
Yeah.
explain nuclear energy or nuclear science to 11th or 10th
Yeah.
standard
Yeah.
student.
Yeah. So the fundamental nuclear science is the interaction of the nuclear particles. So when we talk about nuclear particles, we all know protons, neutrons are the fundamental nuclear particles. So when a protons and neutron interact among each other with a different proton or neutron, so there are a lot of nuclear reactions in action, and that gives nuclear energy, radiation, and which is a fundamental processes of a nuclear reaction. Yeah.
Hmm. Sounds very interesting and very technical also. I can only imagine the depth of knowledge one must have to pursue a career into this technical field.
Yeah, it's a kind of very specialized, and
Hmm.
yeah, we need to really dive into inside of an atom to understand nuclear science because we need to see in very subatomic particle level all the interactions. So it is we don't see that kind of interactions in a physical world. Let's say
Right.
when I'll give a very common example. Let's say
Hmm.
when we put a packet of Eno in a
Hmm.
glass of water, and then the bubbles froth up and we drink that. So everyone knows that. So it's a
Right.
very fundamental chemical reaction. And
Hmm.
when we say about chemical energy or chemical reaction, everyone can visualize it because we can see it. Like
Hmm.
if we put water in the ice tray, we get ice. So it's a
Hmm.
chemical reaction. Everyone can visualize it. But when we talk about nuclear energy, it's very difficult to visualize because we are dealing with subatomic particles, and most of the radiation is, I mean, the radiations are not visible, either it is X-ray or gamma ray. So when it
Hmm.
interacts into your body or into any system, then we know that okay, there is some radiation. But until we know that there is a radioactive source or radiation going on by some other instruments, it's very hard to detect. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that is something. It makes very intriguing to understand why these processes occur, and there are so many reactions, processes undergoing in an atom, and inside our body itself. Like our body has billions of atoms, and there
Absolutely.
obviously there are no radioactive reactions happening in our body, but all the atoms have nucleus, and the nucleus have protons and neutrons, and the protons and neutrons are fundamentally going a lot of changes. And if you
Hmm.
get deeper and deeper, all the then we talk, first of all it is matter, and then again if you go deeper, then it becomes energy. So there is a so the energy space and the mass space gets kind of merged at one space, and the things get very complicated, and then quantum mechanics comes, electrodynamics, and a lot of
Hmm.
tough subjects and concepts comes into the play. So it's kind of it's spiritual, to be frank, like to go deep inside the nucleus and think about energy
Yeah.
field. Yeah, yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And it is very interesting.
Hmm.
Uh, but I believe a lot of people having no sort of exposure with respect to nuclear science or energy for that matter will be listening to this podcast.
Hmm.
Let me lay the groundwork for you so that you can pick up on what tangent to speak upon. So, me as an outsider, as a layman, I look at nuclear science as something of a boon and a bane at the same time. I'll tell you why. Because at one side, we hear that nuclear disasters can happen, have happened in the past, while on the other hand, we also hear in newspapers and different sources of information, and we found out that nuclear energy is also one of the cleanest sources of energy.
Yeah,
So
right.
help me settle this debate. Is nuclear science a boon or bane for the society?
The saddest part of nuclear energy is that when nuclear energy evolved in 1930s, 40s, and it
Hmm.
evolved in a way to make the bomb first. If it would have been, let's say, there are multiple nuclear reactors in
Hmm.
operation, people are getting energy from reactors, and then the bomb would have made, people wouldn't have that bad notion about nuclear energy. But only
Hmm.
bad thing is that it started with Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and the World War II fiasco, and
Hmm.
then it was imprinted in books and history that
Hmm.
nuclear is related to bomb. Even people ask me today, like if I when I tell I'm doing nuclear engineering or I do nuclear studies, and they say, "Oh, bomb bana lo abhi, bomb banate ho kya aap?" I say, no, 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 I don't make bomb, and I'm a pacifist. I'm against war, and there are a lot of good things which we can do with nuclear. So. I mean, that's the thing which came into human psyche over the last 60, 70 years.
Hmm.
So let me, if I have to settle the debate, let me say you one thing. Even the chemical bombs are far more dangerous. Chemical bombs are used every day, and I
Hmm.
mean the normal bombs or RDX bombs or TNT bombs, and those have caused more death. Even bullet is a bomb. So there's so many different kind of bombs. So only the nuclear has got this bad impression because it
Hmm.
started with bomb initially. Had it been started with power or with peaceful uses, and then it evolved to bomb, it would have been a different picture, just like chemical or even biological. So there are biological bombs, but
Right.
but we don't hate biology, we don't hate chemical, but we hate nuclear because it started with bomb.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because every day we also
Mm.
hear these acid attacks happening
Yeah, right.
right in remote
Yeah,
areas or
yeah.
in village areas, but
Yeah,
that's also
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
as dangerous
Bad.
as,
Yeah,
hmm,
as any radioactive source. If you put a small radioactive source in your pocket,
hmm,
you'll get your skin will burn. If you let's say
hmm,
if you take a cobalt 60 in your pocket, and if you carry it for a whole day, your that part of the skin will get burned. It's same like
okay.
acid. So if you
Hmm,
take a vial of acid and you just pour it to your skin, your skin will burn. So
obviously.
yeah, so you need to. It's a kind of a uh, we should have the moral judgment how to use anything, right?
Hmm,
So whether it's chemical or biological, it depends on our ethics and morality, how we use that. So to settle the debate, it just comes down to morality, how you implement all the technology available with us. So that would be my answer.
Wow. Basically, what the humanity chooses
Mm.
to do with this
Yeah,
powerful source of energy.
yeah, right.
Hmm. Right. Uh, but I think this is a good way to talk more about nuclear bombs. We all have seen Oppenheimer and
Hmm.
how the nuclear bomb was invented. But tell me, you being an expert on this topic, tell me how the bombs have evolved over the years. And I'm also asking this because, when we hear nuclear bomb, we immediately remember the tragic event of bomb droppings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Hmm.
But I believe, are the modern bombs more potent than the ones that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And how the bombs have evolved over the years, nuclear bombs.
Yeah, I mean, technologically, nuclear bombs have been same. I mean, it uses
Okay.
nuclear, I mean, plutonium fuel or hydrogen fuel to, but the size of the bombs have been evolving. So Russia has, I think, the most heaviest bomb ever, and there are a lot of arsenal with countries like even US or I mean, a lot of countries. I mean, China, India, all the major nuclear countries. So most of the arsenal is hidden. That's the first thing, and because they don't openly reveal what is the strength of nuclear bomb they have. But in general, yeah, obviously they are very powerful bombs. But yeah, fundamentally the science haven't changed, because that's the basic nuclear reaction and basic fuel. Because when you talk about nuclear bomb, we have uranium, plutonium, only those two fuels. I mean, so yeah, science wise it haven't changed, but the volume has been increasing.
Hmm.
Arsenals are getting bigger.
Where India is at when it comes to developing nuclear defense mechanisms, and is India having sufficient nuclear capacity?
I mean, yeah, for defense, obviously we have arsenals for, I mean, different kind of nuclear bombs or
Hmm.
nuclear, uh, I mean, rockets and everything. So yeah, we have sufficient capacity, but yeah, God forbid, one should not use nuclear. That's what we also strive for, because that will be an end of humanity or end of some part of humanity, because it will be very disastrous. So I think uh, obviously India has nuclear energy, nuclear bombs or whatever, just for defense purpose, I mean for keeping its own interest to be safeguarded, so that yeah, if somebody attacks us, we can show that that we also have a capacity to drop a nuclear bomb. Obviously India is has over the generation since 1976, since when uh, nuclear bomb has been I mean started in India. And then
Hmm.
our stand in the world is that we will never use nuclear bomb in the first place. We'll be using it only for self defense, only when it is required.
Right.
So I think yeah, that is kind of a good stand India has, and India has the capacity to launch a bomb if required. But yeah, God forbid, we never should use it. Yeah.
Right. Um, but there is this entire movement for non-proliferation of nuclear
Mm.
bombs. It seems that, like, one part of the world is completely against nuclear weapons, developing more nuclear arsenal. Uh, but I believe India is having a different stand on it. Can you
Mhm.
tell what is India's strategy when it comes to tackling this non-proliferation movement of against nuclear bombs?
Okay, so non-proliferation uh, came to came in UN and came among the nuclear circle, among the superpowers of like US, France, and
Mhm.
Europe. I mean, the major European countries. So that they told that okay, I mean, we should have a complete control of all the nuclear uh, uh, fuel, nuclear material all across the world, so that we cannot proliferate, we cannot transfer nuclear radioactive material like uranium or plutonium for
Mhm.
bomb related purpose. So we should have track of each and every molecule, each and every gram of nuclear fuel. so that everything is used for only for peaceful purposes, and nothing is used for bombs per se.
Mm.
But the issue is that the countries which have been telling it to do, and they are not kind of uh, following it strictly, and they were being uh, muscle powering India and smaller countries that okay, you don't create bombs. It is what we decide what we do with nuclear all over the world. So they wanted to have a monopoly on the decisions to be made across the world. That okay, we are the superpowers. We will be doing the bomb. No one can control us, but we'll be controlling other countries. And I think it was a very bold decision to not to sign NPT, and eventually when because otherwise we'll be under heavy scrutiny of, in our reactors and in our nuclear establishments from the outside countries, and we'd have never been able to be a nuclear powered country. I mean, not in energy. I mean in bomb.
Mm.
So when in 1997 when the Pokhran test blast was created. So immediately all the countries withdrew from India, and then Canada was making some of the reactors. They overnight they packed up their bags and went out of India, and all countries stopped giving nuclear fuels, nuclear technology to India. Australia, Canada at that time were very strong allies with India. So yeah, so at that time, India got slowed down of its nuclear in 1998 when Atal Bihari Vajpayee government launched the Operation Buddha in Rajasthan for the atom bomb. So I would say, see, all this diplomatic thing. Nuclear is a very diplomatic thing. It can be a uranium is just an element, but uranium has a lot of diplomacy over it, or I mean, uranium or plutonium, whatever nuclear. It has two sides at the same time. If we have,
Right.
if in India as a country would have not kind of done the nuclear bomb testing and everything, would have been seen as a weaker country. Would have not seen as a country which can attack back, or which we can retaliate in case of necessity. But obviously that slowed down India's nuclear progress. But if you see it now in 2024, things are all fair and square because now we are in nuclear power energy, and we are a country which has good nuclear reactor science. We have pretty good reactors even today. So yeah, things might have been slowed down, but at the end of the day, we are a good nuclear country as of today.
Hmm. Amazing.
Yeah. Mm.
And I think, like, if you're not going to defend your own self, then everyone is definitely going to express their dominance on you. So I personally believe that India did the right thing by not signing the treaty
Mm.
uh, about the non-proliferation of
Yeah,
nuclear
yeah,
bombs.
yeah, right, right. Otherwise, at today's stage, we'd have only had some reactors, but we'd have no nuclear arsenals, and we have
Hmm.
pretty. Uh, our neighbors are not an ally of India. I mean,
Right.
our so we need to self-protect, and we need to so that okay, we have capacity to defend ourselves, and at the end
Hmm.
of the day, that matters as a country.
And especially when the neighboring countries are being funded by other countries to develop nuclear weapons. So
Right.
at that
Mm.
moment, obviously, it makes all the more sense for India to develop for its own defense.
Obviously, so NPT has their own set of loopholes and set of own
Hmm.
all the superpowers made their own arrangement so that countries like India, which can be a superpower, they are being subdued and they are being taken control
Hmm.
over by against countries like that. So and they were funding the neighboring countries all throughout these years to make
Yeah,
nuclear arsenals. Yeah. So I think yeah, it's all square and fair now.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, okay, so just to give listeners the context, NPT is
Mm.
non-proliferation treaty. Am I
Pretty.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
cool.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, let's talk about electricity generation, right?
Right.
Like I mentioned in the start also that at one end, nuclear holds this immense power that we can create bombs, but at the same time, it has the potential to generate the cleanest source of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us and help us understand how is electricity generated using the nuclear science.
Okay, so nuclear reactors are of fission and fusion reactors. obviously fusion is in still R&D phase and energy is not generated. So I'll be talking about fission reactors, which are prevalent in all the countries, and India has like 22 reactors of as of now, and India is producing about almost 8,000 megawatt, 7.4 gigawatt of energy as of date. So uh, how does a reactor works? Okay, and then in a nuclear reactor we use nuclear fuels, which is mostly uranium. Those are uranium fuel reactors. We have uranium fuel pellets inside the reactor, and those are arranged in a certain way inside the reactor, and then the uranium uh, uh, atoms react among each other by some they releases neutrons and it hits the other uranium atom, and there is a reaction involved going into the system, and it follows the Einstein's classic equation E equal to mc square, which we all know, and then because of that reaction we get energy out of from the atoms, and that energy is now being extracted from the system, and that and then we get electricity. So the energy, the fundamental energy which we take out of the system is in form of heat initially. So
Hmm.
when let's say we have two atoms of uranium and they're interacting with each other, and
Hmm.
then there are some nuclear reactions occurring at that moment of time, and then we get heat energy.
Hmm.
And then because of that heat, we that heat is being transferred outside the
Hmm.
system, and then the heat is being used to heat steam, I mean water, and that and then it is made steam, and that steam is being run used to drive turbines, and the turbines give electricity just like any hydroelectricity or coal fired electricity. So when we talk about nuclear energy, the energy generation part is common to hydroelectricity or fossil fuel run energy like coal or gas, but
Hmm.
the reaction part is nuclear reaction. Just like, to give a
Hmm.
comparison, let's say when we burn coal we get heat, so that is a chemical
Right.
reaction. Yeah, so when we do a nuclear reaction, it generates heat, but it's a nuclear reaction. There is a
Right.
fundamental difference.
Hmm. Right. And um, then what potential is India having when it comes to generating electricity through nuclear science? I mean, has India made any progress so far? You told me that India is having 22 nuclear power plants across spread across the
Mhm.
nation, but what's the progress made so far? Are there any sources where specifically electricity generated via nuclear science is being used?
Yes, as I told, India has these reactors, 22 reactors, and India is producing almost 7.4 gigawatt electricity. So there's a good amount of energy. So India wants to like by 2035 or 2032, India wants to uh, have more nuclear energy producing from the reactors. We are developing more reactors. I think 4 or 5 reactors are being still in construction phase. So
Seven,
yeah,
I think. Hmm.
I think yeah, seven. Yeah.
Seven.
Uh, so so India is becoming more nuclear strong energy, because at the end of the day, we cannot rely on fossil fuel like coal or gas, because it is causing climate change, as we are getting
Yeah.
affected right now. In fact, our weather is getting so bad. So
Hmm.
uh, at the end of the day, I mean, down the line, we need nuclear energy extensively all across India, because our population is increasing tremendously, and to support the population growth and to, I mean, and obviously there is a direct correlation of energy consumption and quality of life. We need more energy to live a more quality life. So,
Yeah.
and when you have more population, and India is like almost most populated country right now, and over the
Hmm.
time, to have energy for all the people, we definitely need good amount of nuclear energy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Uh, let's talk about nuclear reactors.
Hmm.
Uh, to set the context for the audience, also,
Hmm.
just tell us how does a nuclear reactor work? And you told me that most of the nuclear reactors they are based on nuclear fission
Hmm.
uh,
Fission reactors.
mechanism or
Yeah, right.
technology,
Yeah,
and the nuclear element that they use is uranium, right?
uranium,
How many
right.
nuclear elements are there in general, and how does a nuclear reactor work?
So I'll give the Indian context because Indian nuclear scene is very different from other country, and
Yeah.
so I'll give a historical perspective about India's nuclear scene to make the things clear from right from start. So India has okay, when we talk about nuclear fuel, so uranium is the main fuel of nuclear reactors. We need
Okay.
uranium. So just like in fossil fuel, we have coal. So we have uranium here. Although there are a lot of nuclear elements like thorium or plutonium. So, but uranium is the major fuel of nuclear energy on that because of certain
Right.
nuclear factors of its
Hmm.
reactivity and everything. So, in nuclear elements, we have a thing called isotopes. The same element may have different forms.
Hmm.
So we have uranium 232, we have uranium 233, we have uranium 235, we have uranium 238.
Hmm.
So out of all this, doesn't have the same kind of potential to become a nuclear fuel because of uh,
Oh.
because of certain properties of the nucleus, which I will not
Hmm.
delve into because there is, but due to certain properties. So when
Right.
we talk about nuclear fuel, we can
Hmm.
use uranium 233 and we can use uranium 235.
Okay.
Okay. Now, uranium 235 is the most commonly used nuclear fuel all across the world, and uranium
Hmm.
235 is easily, I mean, available in most of the countries. I mean, the major nuclear countries. In Canada, it
Hmm.
is available. In Australia, uranium
Hmm.
235 is available, even in US.
Hmm.
And so, the initial reactors. Uh, if I have to step back, just to explain how the reactors even got developed. So nuclear reactors, in fact, was co-designed during when the atomic bomb was being produced, when the
Hmm.
bomb was being produced. So in order to use a nuclear fuel from the natural ore, we need to enrich it. So when we dig up the earth and we take a, let's say, a kilogram of uranium,
Hmm.
so so the natural density is very less. It will be in fraction of, let's say, 0.5%, 1%, 2%, and even
Hmm.
less than that at most of the time. And then we need to enrich it. We need to remove the uh, unwanted materials from the ore, and then we need to purify it. We need to enrich the uraniums to a certain level that we can use it for the reactor level. So we need, so normally 5% uranium is being used. Uranium 235 is being used for any
Hmm.
nuclear reactor plant.
Hmm.
Now, the other countries, which I was mentioning about Australia or Canada, which have very large, I mean, in even Kazakhstan and all, they have a very fairly good percentage of uranium 235 in their ore. So, and then they, during the Manhattan Project is the project in which the atom bomb was being produced. So they had
Yeah.
developed the technology to, Enrico Fermi, Oppenheimer, and the whole team, they developed the technology to enrich the uranium.
Hmm.
So so because they want so in atom bomb we use very highly enriched uranium, which goes up to 90%, 95%, because then that's why it releases so much of energy in such a less volume. So, but
Right.
in reactor we cannot, we should not, and we cannot use such a highly enriched uranium because the we are not, we don't need a bomb. We just need to maintain a,
Right.
we just need to maintain a healthy reactivity, because otherwise that system will become super critical and the reactor will become a bomb. So we need to have a,
Explosions. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, it may explode. So, but then the technology of 235, I mean 235 enrichment began during that Cold War time. I mean World War II time,
Hmm.
and then let me put into picture a fabulous gentleman of India, Dr. Homi Jahangir Bhabha. So he came into
Hmm.
the picture in 1940s, and he was a very brilliant scientist of India. And then he looked into India's nuclear scene, and he analyzed the whole scene, that as a country, what
Hmm.
we should be doing. And he was such a visionary. He laid out a plan for the next, like, I mean, for India for the next 1,000 years. Let's say, if I have to say,
Hmm.
because when he realized that India doesn't have a highly enriched uranium 235, but it is
Hmm.
a very good volume of uranium 233.
Hmm.
Sorry, uranium 232.
Okay.
And our 235 is very less enriched. So in
Hmm.
order to enrich the 235, to make it reactor usable, we'd be needing a lot of money and technology, and
Hmm.
so it will be very difficult for as a country to and then we will be relying on imports from other country. So
Right.
so initially importing from other countries was fair enough. It's good. We can import it, but we should not be dependent on other countries for forever to get the fuel. Again, it will create
Hmm.
roadblock. That's what happened in 1998 when because of, after the atomic bomb testing. So anyway, I can come back. So
Hmm.
so he laid out this beautiful three-stage nuclear program of India.
Hmm.
So this no country has such kind of nuclear arrangement plan till date.
Wow.
So
Uh,
first, yeah, yeah. Tell me.
No, I was just saying that that was
Um,
quite impressive.
yeah,
At that early stage to
yeah,
lay the
mm,
plan for
mm,
the entire country, and
mm.
I mean, that's how the nuclear energy has transformed over the years. So, I mean, the he laid the foundational work for that. So,
Yes, yes,
pretty
and
amazing.
that is, and when it was not an age of internet and not an age of any communication, and he, I mean,
Right.
researched on his own, and he was a brilliant scientist. And so India has interestingly very high reserve of thorium. So thorium is a radioactive material. So it is thorium is it is highly found in sands of Kerala, in the
Hmm.
beaches of Kerala. So it's a radioactive material, but we
Hmm.
cannot directly use thorium in the reactors. So thorium
Hmm.
is 232. We need to convert it to uranium 233 to make it
Hmm.
reactor usable. So
Okay.
the three-stage program began with the concept that in the first stage we'll be using the natural uranium, whatever India has, or
Hmm.
we may import some of the fuel, but we'll be using the natural fuel of 233. I mean,
Hmm.
233, and we'll
Hmm.
import 235, and we'll be using it using a specialized reactor way, which is called pressurized heavy water reactor (PHWR). So India has
Hmm.
a lot of PHWRs as compared to BWR and LWR, which are most common in other countries because they have highly enriched uranium, so they can use light water reactor and boiling water reactor. Boiling water reactor is kind of not being used right now. Most countries use light water reactors, but India has a lot many numbers of pressurized heavy water reactor, in which we
Hmm.
use heavy water instead of normal water. So heavy water is deuterium. It's a two atom of hydrogen which makes D2. It's the chemical name is D2, deuterium. So
Right.
so the three-stage program began with that. First of all, we will be using the natural uranium, whatever available in India, and then by using the natural uranium, we'll be will be uh, so there is a thing called breeding. I'll have to explain one more concept. So breeding is a concept in which we transmute one element to other, one nuclear
Hmm.
element to other. So so as I was saying that thorium 232 cannot be used directly, but we can
Hmm.
convert thorium 232 to uranium 233, and then we can use that uranium as a fuel.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so when we saw that India has good amount of thorium reserve and which we can
Right.
be self-sufficient, so he wanted to develop a indigenous technology so that we use our thorium reserve, we make
Hmm.
fuel from them using the existing other nuclear fuel. So
Hmm.
and then we'll be using the thorium eventually. First stage is say like 60, 70 years. We'll be using the natural uranium. We'll import some uranium. Will be then that's the first stage, and then the
Hmm.
second stage will be that we'll be using the thorium to make more fuel,
Hmm.
and then that fuel will be used in the third stage, so that India becomes self-sufficient.
Okay. Wow. I
Okay.
mean, to
Mm.
imagine that this was developed
Yeah.
years ago, that's super impressive, yeah. Because
Exactly. Yeah.
having a great understanding of the Indian geography and
Yes. Yes. Mm.
the nuclear elements that are found there. In fact,
Yeah.
that was one of my questions. That India is having huge amount of thorium reserves across the
Mm.
coastal lines,
Mhm.
and which is again kind of different from the uranium based reactors that are there. So thorium based reactors is going to be the future for Indian context as well.
Right.
So I think you already chipped in there. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. So just one more point. So recently,
Yeah.
So the thorium-based reactor was in construction phase since a long time, but it has some other glitches and all. But recently, in the month of May or March, I think, the reactor was kind of commissioned in Kalpakam. It is called PFBR. So prototype fast
Okay.
breeder reactor. So it's a big news for India and the world nuclear scene that okay, we are in a second stage. We have achieved the second stage right now. So our thorium reactors are being uh, is the I mean it is not a thorium reactor. Okay, so I have to clarify. It is not powered
Hmm.
by thorium. It is a fast breeder reactor, which we will be using the thorium to breed the next level of fuel. So that breeding of
Hmm.
thorium was not being so there is a small reactor in Kalpakam, IGCAR, Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research. It's called Kamini. So the technology was being kind of understood. I mean, they build a reactor. It's not a power generating reactor. Okay, I have to clarify that it's a research reactor. So there reactors can be of
Okay.
two kind. So let's say in a atomic facility, you want to test some fuels, you want to test some
Hmm.
materials, you want to understand the system and to understand the physics and engineering. So that reactor is not generating the power. We are just disposing of the power. So by using that kind of smaller reactors, we do the testing of the materials and whatever. So there is a smaller reactor called Kamini. So that was the testing reactor, and over the years since 1980s to till now, so the testing of the fuel and the technology was being done and research was going on. And then parallelly, since I think last 15 years, so this started constructing the PFBR reactor. And then recently, so the reactor was commissioned, and now the reactor is in operation phase. It's a 500 megawatt reactor, and then it
Okay.
will be now it's a big reactor. It will give us a lot of technological advantage. We'll learn a lot of things over the next couple of years, and will be then the next. So this reactor will be the blueprint for other PFBR reactors all across India. Then our second stage program has like it's kind of it's rolled on now.
Kicked
So
off.
next
Yeah.
yeah, it's kicked off. Yeah, right, that's a good word. Yeah, so yeah, that's what India is. When I told initially that we're in a very good nuclear scene right now, this is one of the reason that okay, at this time we have a indigenously developed fast breeder reactor without help of any countries. We have developed on our own. We have studied the technology and using our own uh, even the resource is ours. The sand is, the thorium is ours. The
Hmm.
technology is ours. So there is kind of a novel fit. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
actually a novel feat
Mhm.
because we'll become a self-sufficient nuclear energy manufacturing estate wherein we
Yeah. Mhm.
won't have to rely on the
Mhm.
imports or even
Mhm.
the technology for that matter.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's a big thumbs up.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, but when we talk about nuclear reactors, we also have to talk about uh, the disasters that have happened within the nuclear reactors in the past. I
Mhm.
can think of events that have happened in Fukushima and Chernobyl, which is uske upar to documentary bhi bani hai.
Mhm.
So tell me, Arnab, are we sitting on a ticking time bomb? Are we, because the nuclear energy, it again reminds me of the Chernobyl event, wherein approximately 30 people died from the immediate blast and then acute radiation syndrome. But you know what? The number that blew my mind off was that UN estimates that a total of 4,000 to 93,000 people may have eventually died because of cancers caused by these
Mhm.
radiations.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that just like completely blew me off. But you tell us, is there a possibility of Chernobyl-like event happening in India?
Chernobyl, in fact, if I have to give a blunt answer, was less of a nuclear accident and it was more of a human accident.
Mm-hmm.
Because so you must have seen the documentary and you must have read about it a little. So
Mm-hmm.
because Chernobyl uh, came to the nuclear energy disaster, all because there were multiple levels of failure of humans in preventing it.
Hmm.
So Chernobyl could have been prevented way before. There were a lot of diplomatic, not, I won't say diplomatic, but internal pressure not to uh, cause an incident or something, and they were confident that the reactor is working fine. And also, the Chernobyl reactor, the type of reactor, which is a molten salt reactor, was actually not a good reactor in
Oh.
fact. So, and this molten salt reactors are now out of question. No one uses a molten salt reactor. And
Hmm.
uh, Chernobyl at the first place shouldn't have happened, because there are a lot of human uh, non-interventions which made Chernobyl happen. They could have intervened in very early
Hmm.
stage to not to create, not to melt the fuel and create such a mess of the
Right.
system. So when you talk about India's, and now after Chernobyl, the nuclear safety guidelines have been tightened uh, way more than it was ever before.
Hmm.
IAEA got into every country, every reactor, all the countries. Immediately they uplifted their safety standards. They have
Hmm.
very good high level of preciseness, control elements, and Chernobyl was a big lesson to all the nuclear countries that we
Right.
need to be very strict, and we need to be extra vigilant. We need to have high level of
Right.
control of the system,
Right.
and human intervention should not be uh, should not come at an expense that the reactor blows off, and we should be mindful of whatever we are doing. And then when since it is an 80, Chernobyl is an 85, and now it's almost what 35 years right now. And
Yeah.
nuclear safety has uh, has developed a lot. I mean, to keeping it simple.
Hmm.
So now there are a lot of system, lot of mechanisms to not let anything go wrong. Obviously
Right.
Fukushima was kind of an accident because of the tsunami. And
Right.
yeah, so although Fukushima didn't have any direct death, as far as I know,
Hmm.
and
Right.
it was contained. And yeah, again, so it's a number of death. I mean, uh, the cancer related death, yeah, obviously the numbers are there. And also, if you have seen some vlogs recently, there are still people living in the Chernobyl area, some old people, they are still there. And yeah, so in
It's a
the
tourist place. I was watching one video. I think people go there and they still have those meters to
yeah,
like
dosimeters and everything, yeah,
note the
yeah,
radioactivity still
radioactive,
there.
yeah,
I
it is
mean,
still there, yeah. Even
it's absolutely crazy to think that an
yeah,
event that happened almost 35 years ago, there's still like
yeah,
the
yeah,
place is still radioactive.
yeah,
It's
it's
unimaginable.
still radioactive. So because the radioactivity is spread all across the town of Pripyat. But
Um,
in the periphery of Pripyat, still people stays. I mean, the old people. So yeah, I mean that is a very unfortunate accident, which
hmm,
was. But yeah, I pray that no nuclear reaction or nuclear reactor accidents occur. Yeah.
yeah, right. I think you've talked about the
Mhm.
safeguards that every nation that is taking possibly
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, and
uh, and
uh,
having the internal controls in
uh,
place so that nothing
yeah.
that
Mm.
sort happens again.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, one more point, I will just like to applaud the International Atomic Energy Agency
mhm,
(IAEA). So they after Chernobyl they worked on. I mean, they have very good guidelines, and they're very trustworthy. They are doing their best job in safeguarding the reactors and everything. So yeah,
hmm.
that is kind of
Wow.
which we
That's
need as of now. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
right.
We should appreciate the efforts also,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, Tell us a few other applications where nuclear energy is being used. I mean, the most common that we've heard
Hmm.
in defense,
Hmm.
electricity generation, but I believe it opens a plethora of opportunities for nuclear energy or nuclear science as a whole community. So,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the other applications, be it in health system or be it in deep space exploration. So, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, as I was initially telling that nuclear has two kind of energy. One
Hmm.
is fission energy, which you all know now, and then we have one more form of nuclear energy, which is nuclear fusion energy. So,
Yeah.
nuclear fusion is a very interesting science. So, and it has a so plasma physics has a different role in nuclear fusion. So, nuclear fusion is a mixture of plasma plasma physics and nuclear physics. So there is a combination of two science merging together to give a new form of energy. So when we, I'll just give a brief distinction, very fundamental distinction about fusion and
Yeah.
fission. Is that, yeah, the so in
The
fission,
plasma.
yeah, right, yeah. So in
Hmm.
fission, we are essentially breaking an atom
Okay.
into multiple parts. Let's say when we have uranium, we are dividing into two parts, and when we are dividing it, there is a mass difference, and because of the mass difference, from equal to mc square, the Einstein's equation, because of the mass difference, we get some energy. The e part we get it. Now
Hmm.
that is a fission. We are breaking an atom. Now let's imagine if we reverse it. What if we fuse to atom? Instead of breaking it, if we fuse
Okay.
the atom, there can be a reaction too. So if
Right.
so to in order to fuse to atom, now we need to make the condition of the atom so that it fuses, one atom fuses to the other. So
Hmm.
if you just think very in a layman term, let's say we have two solid particle, we have two
Hmm.
brick or two stone, and we just hit each other, it won't
Hmm.
fuse, right?
Right. They
Because
collide, right?
they will collide. They will collide. They will
Yeah.
just collide and they will break and
Hmm.
something like that. So,
Right.
it will not just fuse. It will not get merged like. So
Right.
in order to fuse two atoms, so
Hmm.
there is a energy boundary which we need to uh, make the atom so highly energetic, and then
Hmm.
then only it can be fused. So that's
Right.
what plasma comes into. So plasma is
Okay.
a state of matter, first of all. So just like we have solid,
Liquid.
liquid, gas, then
Hmm.
we have plasma. So
Okay.
plasma is very interesting state of matter because we don't think of plasma, but the universe is made of plasma. Universe is almost 99% plasma.
How interesting.
Yes, all our stars, all our sun, I mean the stars and the galaxies, everything
Mm-hmm.
is plasma. All are
Hmm.
highly ionized gaseous state. So plasma is a uh, the definition of plasma goes as in like it's a quasi-neutral uh, energetic gas, energetic state of particle. I want to say gas.
Hmm.
So, So how does plasma? I'll just give a brief description about plasma because to understand fusion, we need to understand plasma. Then I'll talk about fusion, obviously. So,
Hmm.
uh, when we heat a gas, let's say, uh, we know solid, we know liquid, and we heat a liquid, it get gas, and then if we heat a gas, so as you know, as a layman point of view, we have a atom and we have a nucleus inside it, and we have electrons revolving around uh,
Correct.
the nucleus. And if we give a sufficient energy, energy again, if we heat it up in by some means,
Right.
and if we heat means not like heating by in a stovetop or something, heating in energy domain means giving energy, magnetic energy, electrical energy in
Hmm.
some form, and then after getting a sufficient threshold of energy, all atoms have their own threshold energy, so the electrons comes out of the atom. Now,
Oh.
okay, now let's say we have a box of gas, and we are heating it to a sufficient energy. For example, we take hydrogen and we heat it up. We are heating it slowly, and then at one point of time, the electrons will strip off the nucleus. There will be protons and there will be electrons in that box. It will be separated.
Hmm.
Now, initially, when we put hydrogen gas into the system, it was a neutral
Hmm.
gas.
Hmm.
So let's say it has 100. We put 100 hydrogen atoms. We have
Hmm.
100 protons and
Hmm.
had 100, protons, the nucleus,
Hmm.
and 100 electrons. When we heat it up, the electrons separate out. Now if we see the box, the total number of electrons and protons haven't changed. It's still the same. We have still 100 and 100 out of, but it is not attached to the system. So that's why
Hmm.
it's a quasi-neutral state of gas. It is falsely neutral.
Okay.
So it is
Okay.
separated out. If you see it
Hmm.
from the outside, the numbers are same, but it is quasi-neutral. It's not true
Right.
neutral.
Right.
So, and I'll give a very small example of plasma is our tube lights.
Okay.
The tube lights, not the LED lights which we use right now. The tube lights
Hmm.
we used to use, like let's say till now. Like, so the tube light, the general tube lights, the
Hmm.
so tube light has mercury vapor, mercury
Hmm.
gas. So
Right.
once you get so tube light is a classic example of plasma. It's a low density, low temperature plasma. So once we switch the tube light on, once we power it on, and in both the electrodes, like we have a
Huh.
tube light and we have two junctions, right? So
Huh. Right.
electricity flows in the gas.
Okay.
Okay, so if you remember, still when you turn on the tube light, there is to be a flicker, right? Initially,
Right.
because the flicker occurs because the reaction starts just trigger. It just starts to
Hmm.
trigger at that moment of time.
Okay.
And when the electricity passes along the gas, the mercury vapor, it strips of the electron, and because of the stripping of the electron, and there is a continuous electricity, the because of the electron coming out of the atom and going back, coming back, so because of this process
Hmm.
we get light energy.
Oh, okay.
So I'm making this point because light is a form of energy. We are getting some energy. So light has some energies. There is a we can calculate it by equal to its new Planck's equation. Now
Right.
now let us extend this idea
Hmm.
to a fusion reactor.
Hmm.
So in our tube light, we are not creating a fusion reactor. We are just igniting a plasma.
Hmm.
Now, what happens in fusion? Now, coming back to fusion, what happened in fusion is that we have two atoms. We have two states of hydrogen, for example. So the most common form of fusion reaction is called DT reaction. DT reaction is a reaction of hydrogen and one more isotope of hydrogen, which is called deuterium. Uh,
Hmm.
Sorry, I mean DT is, and we have one more isotope of hydrogen, which is tritium. So tritium is 3 proton, deuterium is 2 proton, and hydrogen is 1 proton. So DT reaction is when deuterium and tritium reacts, we get a fusion reaction in which you can generate electricity. Even even H plus D also can cause a reaction. So there are different types of nuclear reactions. So when I was talking about uranium initially, uranium is a heavy atom. So an heavy atom can be broken into two, and hydrogen is a very light atom. It's the first atom in the atomic table. It's the most lightest
Right.
element. So atoms can be fused, and heavier elements can be broken into. So there is a
Hmm.
fundamental difference between fusion and fission. So you cannot fuse
Okay.
a uranium atom, and you cannot
Right.
fission a hydrogen atom because it is so small you cannot make it divide into
Correct.
two. So the
Correct.
lower elements of the period, if you we all know the periodic table, right? So the lower
Hmm.
elements of the periodic table can be used for fusion, and the higher element part of the periodic table can be used for fusion. Sorry,
Fission.
fission. That is the fundamental difference. Now,
Hmm.
uh, fission. When you talk about fusion now, so we give sufficient energy to the system. Now the fusion elements, let's say deuterium, tritium, whatever it is, it goes to a very high energy state, very high energy state. It has huge temperature. So the temperature is equal to the temperature of the sun in a fusion reactor.
Really?
Really.
Oh my
So
God.
so when we talk about fusion reactors, we talk about we are creating sun in the earth.
Wow.
Okay. So
Hmm.
in sun, the same reaction is have is occurring all the time, like in most of the stars. So we are trying to recreate the sun like like in a reactor, in a building, inside a
Right.
vessel. So that is what fusion reaction is about. So it is
Hmm.
recreating the sun. So
Hmm.
now we make it to such a high temperature, and then uh, it fuses off, and then we get some energy out of the system, and then
Hmm.
energy can be again be extracted out as like fission reactor in form of heat, and then we can drive the turbine and we can generate the electricity. So the first fission reaction was demonstrated way back in 1990s, early 90s in a European lab in UK. It is called Z, Joint European Torus. So then it was first demonstrated that okay, we can have fusion reaction for energy purposes, and still
Oh.
since okay. So and then fusion program was like okay, plasma physics research was going on since 1960s, 1970s, and then when the uh, research evolved into such a state that we can generate electricity from fusion. So all the countries started of their own research. European countries, Japan, and
Mm.
Russia. Russia is still very good in plasma physics. They have developed a lot of plasma physics technologies, and then US also. And then in 2007, all the countries uh, then they got into the point that to make a fusion reactor in practice, we need a lot of technological and financial investment. uh,
Right.
so no, so the technological investment was so high that no single country could even imagine to make a reactor.
Okay.
Yeah. So all the countries in 90s,
Hmm.
from 90s, they decided that okay, we should be joining our hands and then we should make a reactor so that we have a common reactor at one place. We develop the technology, then we make the reactor, and
Hmm.
those who country are contributing to the project will get a blueprint of the reactor and we'll take it back to home and we'll just make one more copy of the reactor and multiple copies of it. So,
Got it.
okay, so that idea gave birth to International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. So that
Hmm.
reactor is now being constructed in France, in a city called Cadar. It's a town called Cadars in south of France. So
Hmm.
India joined very late, in 2007, and the other countries they started from 90s, and then they were designing the reactor and they were studying the physics, they were designing the mechanical
Hmm.
components, material studies and everything, because when we are dealing with such a high temperature, when we're trying to reach a temperature of sun, the material science needs to be understood very deeply, because we need materials which
Got
can
it.
withstand a temperature of sun, and we need to extract energy, we need to kind of hold the reaction in space, in 3D space, so that the reaction doesn't hit the wall, and there are a lot of technological physics
Hmm.
involved into the system. And then
Yeah, in a very
yeah,
controlled environment because
yeah, yeah,
the stakes are so high. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
could lead
So
to another disaster because
yeah,
the
so
amount of
the
energy. Hmm.
energy, so that's why it's called controlled fusion reaction. So
Hmm.
so then India joined this group in 2007, and then India became a part of the nuclear fusion community. And then
Hmm.
so the institute in India is called Institute for Plasma Research in Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, which is the sole key agency of India to contribute to the project. So all the countries were divided several
Hmm.
projects. India is developing certain products, products and technology and physics, and Japan
Okay.
is doing something. The European Union as a whole is doing certain kind of work. So all the countries are contributing, and so the ITER reactor is in developmental stage, and it has almost reached 70% of the reactor stage, development stage. And if you can, I will urge the viewers to go to the ITER site and see because the reactor um, construction is live. You can always see the reactor being constructed there. So they have aerial view of the whole functions and how the reactor being constructed and everything. So it's very interesting to know that we have a very collaborative, the scientists of the world, they are joining hands for a single mandate that we will be doing a nuclear fusion reactor.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Got it.
Hmm.
Um, that was very, very impressive. It only goes to show how much you love this subject. You're so passionate about it because you explained it to me like a layman, but at the same time, I only know that you can only simplify if you have true understanding of that subject.
Thank you.
So kudos to you. Absolutely amazed by the depth of your knowledge and how lucidly you explained this to the listeners as well as me.
Mhm.
But I think in middle of all this, we lost the thread that how nuclear energy is being used in other applications,
Yeah,
health
yeah.
systems. So
Health.
can we talk a little bit, like 2 to 3 minutes about that?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the major, apart from energy, is health, which is cancer research, cancer
Mhm.
treatment, and few other elements. But I think for cancer, nuclear medicine has been a greatest thing happened to cancer diagnosis. So
Hmm.
for diagnosing cancer, we need very specific reactions to understand where the cancerous cells and tumors are. So a
Hmm.
normal scan, like let's say an USG or something, which are traditional scans, so it won't
Hmm.
go to the atomic scale and tell that where exactly the cancer cell is. Obviously, it will
Hmm.
give an overview. Okay, let's say
Right.
like in stomach you have a cancer you have in this area, but it don't go into that level of layers that to tell where the energy, where the cancer is. And again, the first is diagnosis, and one is the second is the treatment of it. So we
Right.
need to we so when we have to kill a cancer cell, we need to attack that cell itself. We cannot be kind of giving energy to the whole organ. So we need a very specialized, highly atomic scale of energy going to the tumor, and that's killing that single, I mean, that group of cells. So
Correct.
if you look at cellular level, it's not a big zone. I mean, it's a hardly few millimeters and less than few millimeters of targeted cells which you have to kill and which you have to diagnose. So
Right.
nuclear medicine is a, big thing. I won't delve into too much deep into it because it's a
Yeah.
completely different field. So so the PET scans which you have seen in the diagnostic center, right? The positron
Hmm.
emission tomography, PET scans, as we told tell. So
Hmm.
PET scans has this highly localized ability to detect cancer cells at a very early stage. It can detect and it can tell, okay, it can diagnose cancer. So that kind of diagnosis has been helping humankind since last 20 30 years. And so, and also similarly for treating also. So
Hmm.
I would urge the viewers to read about PET systems and SPEC systems. Those are the commonly used medical
Hmm.
radio diagnosis.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. I believe we can just go on and discuss so many
Yeah,
things
right,
about this, but
right.
it's time. Let's
Uh,
conclude the podcast.
yeah,
I
sure.
thoroughly enjoyed it. I felt
Thank you.
like, I was in this classroom and I'm learning from my teacher. So thank
Mhm.
you
Thank you.
so, so much, Arnab, for taking our time and explaining this. All this, like, in the most, I think, simple way. I now understand how a nuclear reactor works. I know what plasma is, and so many other things. So, big thanks to you. Thank you for taking our time.
My
We'll
pleasure.
be doing,
Yeah.
yes, guys, we'll be doing another episode wherein we want to dive into nuclear science or as a career option. So,
Mhm.
we'll be coming out with that episode to let us know if there is
Sure.
anything specific that you would like to ask. But yeah, thank you so much, Arnab, for taking
Yeah.
our time.
Yeah. Thank you, Pooja, for your effort in holding this discussion. And I uh, believe that such discussions are very essential for our youth and laymen to understand the world of nuclear energy, nuclear system, because for everyone it seems nuclear is kind of very dark and very deep.
Yeah.
But I urge everyone to just spend some time looking up YouTube videos at least, even the one, and reading some simple books or simple blogs, because nuclear is beautiful. If you think in atomic level and nuclear level, we can do a lot of things, and it's not about only about bombs. Again, going back to the same thing, and there is a world beyond bombs, and the world can be made beautiful with nuclear.
Yes, there are
Yeah,
endless possibilities which we
yeah,
haven't really touched upon in this
yes,
podcast.
yeah,
Maybe, hopefully, we can dedicate one more podcast just to the other applications of
yeah,
nuclear
right, right,
energy.
yeah, right,
That's
right,
a
yeah,
different
yeah,
world altogether.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
so that's it, guys. You can
yeah,
connect with Arnab on
yeah,
LinkedIn.
yeah, yeah,
If
sure,
you need any help or if you want to venture out into this interesting field, reach out to
yeah.
him. He's definitely going to help you out.
I'm open to any discussion in LinkedIn, and I would love to explain or help out students or anyone who wants to understand about nuclear. So they can connect me on LinkedIn at any time.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah,
so
great.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Pooja.